Can you hear me, Jeffrey?
Yes, I can. How are you?
Great, and yourself there.
I'm great. Your background is more, I want that Pac-Man game.
Oh, anyone can get one of those. It was just an eBay purchase 3, 4 years ago. Are you a
Oh,
gamer or you just like Pac-Man?
I like the old school games like Joust and Pac-Man.
Man has taste, and the man has had taste for decades. When they said, "Hey, do you want to interview Jeffrey Reddick?" I said, "Yes." And then I noticed they're pitching 2 or 3 different movies that you're involved with at the same time.
Oh my God, that's
They're pitching The Call and Don't Look Back. Were they both finished around the same time, or just that's when they both got slotted?
yeah, they just got slotted. I finished Don't Look Back last year. Um, the Call got finished this year, and I literally found out like 3 weeks ago that the Call was coming out like 2 weeks before movie I directed. So I was like, it's you can't complain, but it's like because
Yeah,
it's
you might as
October, it's Halloween time, so there's room for everything. But it's pretty funny that
Yeah, that happened. And then people look at your IMDb page will also see pending a bunch of other projects: Superstition, Cloudland, Samurai Rabbit. You're in a Robert England documentary that's coming out soon. Wow. Um,
kind of
it's,
makes me sound like a whore, doesn't
it
it?
makes you sound like somebody that works a lot. But one of the
Yeah.
things that I'm curious about, rather than saying that's the final destination guy, do you like to be thought of primarily as a writer, a director, a producer? What do you like to be thought of?
Um, this is going to sound douchey. An artist, pretty much, because I love writing. Acting was my first love. I love producing as well, and I've definitely enjoyed directing. And there's a couple other projects that I'm really excited to direct. So I like doing it all. It. Well, I thankfully don't have to choose it because I always tell people starting out in the business, if kind of choose, like, if you could do only one thing for 10 years, like what would it be, and focus on that, because I think that helps you get in the door. But since I've been in the business for so long, I've got to kind of experience all sides of it. And I want to get my own stuff produced, obviously, but I've also met so many wonderfully talented writers and directors and actors and actresses, and that
Mhm.
I see stuff that I'm like, this needs to get made. So I'm trying to kind of build my empire slowly but surely, where I can kind of do all of it.
Not just trying, doing. Because
Do it.
let's face it, how many people get to make a sequel of a film that they played a creative hand in? And there's been, is it 5 Final Destinations?
Yeah, there have been 5 of them.
How many
And
films make it to that fifth franchise piece right there? I can't think of many. Like, yes, Star Wars, Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th.
yeah, I'm very blessed that people responded to Final Destination like they did. And um, yeah, it's crazy because people still talk about, like, oh, that's a Final Destination moment, which is insane that it's actually part of the kind of lexicon of the public now. So I've always said, obviously I don't want to die tomorrow, but if I did die tomorrow, as a horror fan myself, who kind of dreamed of like working in this business and creating
Right.
something, the fact that I had even that film made is a blessing, and I could die happy. But the fact that I can't get to keep working in the genre is awesome.
Did I read correctly that you basically worked on the industry side for 11 years before things kind of took off for you?
Yeah, I worked at New Line Cinema out of their New York office. I started there as an intern and worked there 11 years. The funny thing is, I actually sold the movie in '97, and it came out in 2000. But I still kept working there because I'm just kind of. I was like, oh, I guess I can just do this writing thing and still work a full-time job. So I didn't do the traditional. The minute I sell my first project, take off and come out to Los Angeles.
Right.
Could have done that. Maybe would have been good. Maybe not. Who knows? But then I sold this. I wrote the story for the second one and sold that. And then finally, my boss at New Line is like, dude, and Bob Shea was like, we love you, like, because Bob runs New Line. They were like, we love you, but it's kind of time for you to go out in the world now and be a just do this already. Like, you don't need. But I love the company so much. Like, Nightmare on Elm Street's my favorite movie.
For sure.
And that's what got me really into the business, was reaching out to Bob Shea when I was 14 with a prequel idea for A Nightmare on Elm Street. So much of my, dreams going before I got to New York were about New Line. And so when I got to work there, I was just kind of like, this is awesome. I could stay here forever. Yeah. So they had to push me out of the nest.
Sure. Does that treatment factor into that Robert Englund documentary that's in the works?
I don't know if it does, but I know that the funny thing is I never, because when you're 14 years old, you're not thinking like strategically, like, oh, I better keep a copy of this because someday when I make it, people are going to want to read it. So I've lost it, but I just remember the story was a pretty generic prequel, like Fred Krueger was a janitor at a school and he did some bad things to kids and the parents killed, it's just pretty much the story that they tell in the backstory they tell on Nightmare on Elm Street. But New Line is considered the house that Freddie built because,
Sure.
Nightmare on Elm Street really put the studio on the map and allowed them to go on and make so many amazingly creative films like Blade and The Mask and Dumb and Dumber. And they made movies that other people were like, nobody's going to go see these movies.
Right.
And New Line would make them and people would go see them. And it was just a great creative place to work. So, I'm definitely part of that New Line story that they tell when they talk about the company. So I know that when we talked, it was I think they touched on the treatment, but it was also more of like being part of, Freddie's house.
Cool. So were you always a film first kind of person, or was music ever your number one?
No, I've always I love music, but I when I grew up, I just watched TV, and film voraciously. And, one of my neighbors told me that when I was 9 years old, she asked me what I was going to do when I grew up. And I said, I'm going to be a movie star. So I always knew that I was going to work in the industry. I did have dreams of, like, I joke about this, but it was my dream. So you can't get on somebody for their dreams. But, I wanted to be the first biracial centerfold in Teen Beat magazine. Like, that was my goal. I was like, I'm going to be in Teen Beat magazine. And then I quit being a teenager. But but when I went to New York, she's like, you're basically like an ethnic Michael J. Fox, and I don't know what to do with that. So you don't rap, you don't play basketball. Like, I just don't know where to find work for you. And this was in the early 90s, so she pretty much put my acting dreams on hold at the time because, if I was dark skinned and I could rap, then she could find work for me. Or if I could play a pimp or play basketball. But because I'm like biracial, it's like, we don't know what the hell to do with you. So times have changed, luckily.
Oh, yeah. For sure. Nowadays, it's almost like a marketing point that somebody's multiracial. But people have to remember, in the early 90s, people were not talking about Mariah Carey as being biracial. People were not talking about Keanu Reeves as being multiracial or anything, or Tyson Beckford. It was almost kind of like a later on, like, by the way, kind of thing. So it's wonderful, for all the flaws that people talk about modern Hollywood, that's one of the things that's actually gotten better, that it's become inclusive. Does it have a long way to go? Yes. But for sure, it's gotten better, to say the least.
It's gotten better, for sure. For sure.
Right. So going back to the fact that you have two movies coming out at about the same time, is every October usually that packed or busy for you?
No. This is the first time that I've had two movies come out at the same time. Usually the Final Destinations, even the sequels, usually came out around March. Some of them varied, but I've never had this wonderful, I was going to say problem, but that's such a goofy thing to say because it's not a problem. I've never had this wonderful blessing of two movies coming out at the same time. And they're two different movies. Like, The Call is kind of old school, set in the 80s, definitely horror film. Like, we've got Lynn Shay and Tobin Bell in it, who are two icons in the genre, and we have a wonderful cast. And Timothy Woodard Jr., the director, directed The Final Wish, which came out a couple of years ago, that we had Lynn Shay in as well. And, Don't Look Back is more of a mystery thriller with horror elements to it. So it's about some people who see somebody getting assaulted and don't help. And when the victim dies, the witnesses are outed to the public, and somebody or something starts coming after them. And so you're not sure if it's supernatural. You're not sure if it's a killer. You're not sure if it's in the lead character's head. So it's much more of a mystery thriller than a horror movie. It's got horror in it, like, and I'm one of those horror geeks that I hate when people try to say it's not a horror movie, but it's not, you know, because we don't know what's after the victims. Like, I couldn't have any set pieces with when the victims are dying where we see what's happening to them, or that would give away one answer or the other. So it definitely is more of a mystery. You know, we see a lot of the aftermath of people dying as opposed to like seeing a lot of people die on screen. Whereas in The Call, people die horribly on screen.
My wife is the diehard horror person in the household, and from learning from everything that she watches, it seems to me like horror was extremely predictable until maybe 2002, 2003, somewhere around when Final Destination took off that era, where you used to be able to say, oh, the killer is definitely that person and that person's going to die. And now when I watch films like yours, I don't know what's going to happen. You kind of go, well, when's the first twist going to happen? Is it 20 minutes in or 30 minutes in?
Right.
Yeah, you're part of this new generation of unpredictable filmmakers. That's intended to be a compliment.
Yeah, no, it is. No, absolutely. I mean, and I think that's the thing is what you see, you know, because back in the day, I mean, a lot of people would make a horror movie because they knew it would make money and that'd be their stepping stone into Hollywood, and then they would never look back. So a lot of people that, you know, kind of grew up in the age of the horror films that I grew up on, like the slasher, the Friday the 13th, and Nightmare on Elm Street, we all love those movies. But now it's like, we don't want to just tell those same kind of stories. So it's like, we're trying to figure out ways to tell stories that, you know, obviously they have those influences on us, but, you know, you want to keep the audience on their feet. And so when you know the tricks of the trade, you can kind of toy around with that without cheating. Like, that was the biggest thing with Don't Look Back, is I had to make a movie where when you looked back on the movie and watched it again, yeah, I'm kind of clever sometimes. But when you watch it again, you can be like, oh, he didn't cheat. You know, like, for, you know, you know, you want to have an ending that satisfies everybody, which is hard to do, but you want to make sure that when people go back, you're not like, well, they totally cheated in this scene, like this, you know. So it was a tough line to walk, you know, with the film, but I'm really happy with how it turned out.
Earlier, you said to me that even though Final Destination came out in 2000, it was sold in 97. At this point in your career, given that you have this track record and you've succeeded as a director, a screenwriter, and a producer, is it that one out of every 2 or 3 things that you write gets made? Or is it still that one out of every 7, 8 kind of things maybe gets sold and not made?
Yeah, it's the latter. You know, it's a really tough, fickle business. And it's always ever evolving. So when I was at New Line, like, the heads of all the studios were people like Bob Shea, who loved film. They grew up and loved film, and they had a passion for film. And then once the corporation started buying the studios, and there were all these mergers happening, they started bringing in a lot of corporate people with business backgrounds. And so then they started breaking down films into like a sign. Well, we need to hit these 4 quadrants, and we need to hit this, and we need to do that. And so it became more of a formula. So that's why I think when you see a lot of the studio films, they're sequels, remakes, something based off of big IPs, because they're now focused on the business angle of it and not so much the creative as much as they used to be. So there's a lot of alchemy that goes into like getting a movie greenlit. And
of course,
yeah. And a lot of it's like, okay, well, we need a big star attached. And I was like, well, when I worked at New Line, we would pick up a script and then we would attach a big star. But now they almost want you to bring like a package to them. And then also the financing world is completely different. So I don't know how many times we've been financed, but then gotten into the production, and then the financing falls through. So you still deal with all that stuff. But on the positive side, there's a lot more opportunities for filmmakers because of all the streamers out there. You know, it used to be if you went direct to Netflix or cable, like it was a sign of shame, even though there were quality films.
Right.
But now that everybody's doing it, everybody's like, oh wow, this is, you know, it's just, you want to get it. If you make film or TV, or if you're an artist, you just want to get your work out there and seen. So, you know, the streaming world has presented a lot more opportunities for people. So, yeah, it's exciting. It's just, you have to be able, so you don't go insane. You have to be able to like roll with the changes in the business. Like, you know, like right now I'm working on 2 animated, you know, shows for Netflix, you know, and they're, you know, one of them's like is the Usagi Yojimbo spinoff, which is a big Japanese cartoon, but you know, that's just a fun kids movie, you know, with rabbits and cool other ninjas, and you know, so it's funny because I put humor in my horror stuff, but I've never just written comedy stuff, even though I want to. So this has been a good segue into like scratching that itch. But you know, as a writer, it's just like I'm open to writing anything, but I still love horror, and that'll always be like my lodestone that I'll always go back to.
Yeah, it's both inspiring and depressing to hear that you, at this point in your career, it's not like, well, Jeffrey wants to do it, it's made. And I think it kind of shows what it is in Hollywood, that even with a proven successful track record, you still have to hustle and you still have to be creative.
Yeah.
At this point in time.
Yeah.
Well, sad but true. But do you got time for 3 quick questions, man? And then you're free for me?
Oh, no. I can answer as many as you want, brother.
Okay. First one I got is kind of stupid, but I'm curious.
There are no stupid questions.
Oh, there are stupid.
Okay. Let me hear it first.
Okay. Last name Reddick. There's a lot of famous Reddicks out there. There's Lance Reddick, JJ Reddick from the band Bowling for Soup, Jarrett Reddick. Any of them you're related to?
You know what? I've never asked. I've never checked. I should, because it would be cool. But I've never. Yeah, people ask me. I should just do that DNA test, that 20 whatever, or I should just email them and be like, "Hey, let me find out if we're related." I should find out. That's not a stupid question, because it's a rare name. Trust me, I got picked on a lot for having that name growing up.
How would you get picked on for Reddick? It's non-ethnic.
Put a slash between the D's.
Oh,
there you go.
I didn't pick up on that. My bad. Next question, and I like to find this out from especially people who are informed writers and people who make original content. What's been your best television discovery from COVID? Because obviously you've been indoors more this year than any other year of your life.
Oh, that's a good one. What's been my best TV discovery? I mean, there's a couple things I'm binging. The Boys, I really enjoy. The Umbrella Academy. Raised by Wolves, I have enjoyed that series a lot too. I just keep thinking I'm going to forget one that my friend wrote, and they're going to be like, "Why didn't you say mine?" But I think those 3 have been really cool. Yeah, I've been watching Lovecraft County, but it's a little too much of every episode feels like a different show.
Sure.
It's like a different style. Like it's okay, this one's going to be this, and so I watch it, but I haven't been like as hooked as I want to be on that one.
Well, 2 quick questions, and now you're free, because you gave me the freebie right there. The first one is, people who work in the entertainment business, usually it was their calling, it was all they did, and they worked in it. Then at a certain point, they burnt out and they had to learn to have a life outside of it. What do you do when you're not working that's away from entertainment? Because no one really knows that about you.
Well, the sad thing is I just go to the movies.
Oh, okay.
Because that's the thing about, you know, like having a career like mine where, you know, I started off with a really successful franchise, but I also stayed in New York. So I didn't kind of come out and do the Hollywood kind of networking game where, you know what I'm saying? So I didn't come out to LA till after I sold the second one in 2001. Mm-hmm. So I've just been working to just get films made. Like I read other people's stuff when I can and try to help other people get their stuff made as well. But this is still like very much my life. Like I don't think I'll ever be at a point where I'm like, okay, I've done it. So I'm usually juggling like 5 or 6 things, because you just never know which
Sure.
thing is going to take off. So Yeah, I'm hoping that I'm hoping in a couple years I'll be able to like take like 6 months off and have a great long vacation. But between, you know, visiting family and writing on my stuff and trying to help other people with their stuff, like yeah, watching movies.
I don't blame you. I'm the same way. When I'm
Yeah.
not writing, I'm writing.
Yeah. Yeah.
To close, there any last words for the kids?
Just like in general.
Sure. I mean, let's face it, the kids might be 3 generations of people who know your work at this point. So anyone that you think might be apt for some good advice out there.
Oh God, sometimes I feel like I'm the gay Oprah when people ask me for advice. I just start going off. Definitely, if this is your calling, you know, being an artist of any kind, you'll know it because that's the only thing that you know will make you happy in life.
Mhm.
I think you have to do it or you'll regret it, but you also have to be willing to put in probably 10 years of your life of struggling because there's no like shortcuts, you know. But if you stick with it long enough, you'll cut through all the clutter of the people that come to Hollywood and are like, I'm coming out here to try acting for a year, and if it doesn't work, I'm quitting. So you're dealing with all those people plus all the people that are training as hard as you are. So, but also the biggest advice actually I would say now is create your own content, because we didn't have the technology like on the you know, you can shoot 4K on your phones now.
Right.
Like you have the technology to create your own content. So don't wait around, because if you wait around for somebody else to finance your project, you're going to be just waiting forever. Like nobody's sitting around like looking to hand out money. Like, but you have an opportunity to reach an audience by creating content. And to do that, if you're an actor, you have to surround yourself with good people too. Like that's one thing about any business is there's a lot of people that talk a big game and will promise you things. And if anybody promises you something, they probably can't do it. Because I'm the opposite. Like I tell people, like, if I read something that I like, I can show it to some people, but I can't guarantee anything. Like
Sure.
And I never say like I could get it to the head of a studio. You know, like I never do any of that.
Under promise, over deliver.
Absolutely. And
Yes.
the people that over promise and under deliver are the people you have to watch out for. But so you got to surround yourself with good, supportive people, and you've got to stay healthy too. Like I've been sober for 15 years now. It's a very stressful business. So certainly, you know, finding, you know, a crutch with alcohol it happens way too often with many friends. I've lost a lot of friends to drugs and alcohol. So I tell people if they're find themselves at a point in life where they're relying on substances to like get them through life, get help. There's no shame in that. And it's better to do it when you're younger. It's better to do it anytime actually, but you know, kind of nip that in the bud when you're younger is a great thing. And just keep at it. You're going to be told no so many times, and you have to learn. I will say the best thing I learned working at a studio is I saw how they made the sausage behind the scenes. So we would get like a really good script in and from an unknown writer, and then we'd get a really crappy script in with like an A-list writer. And they of course pick the crappy script with the A-list writer because the A-list actor, sorry, not a writer, the A-list actor attached, because the actor's going to guarantee box office. So there are so many choices that go on behind the scenes that have nothing to do with the quality of your work. And working at a studio, I learned that early on. So that's helped me get through a lot of the rejections that happen in my career. But I do see a lot of people who don't understand that, who their first script, they get rejected, they're like crushed. And it's like, you can't take it personally, because it's a business. People are putting money up, so they want to make sure they're going to get their money back. They don't care about your feelings. They don't care about, a lot of them don't care about art, you know, so it's a tough business. But if you keep yourself surrounded by good people and, you know, don't compromise your morals for any reason and treat other people well and stick with it, you'll find an audience for your work, which is what you want as an artist. So
I am taking the Jeffrey Reddick masterclass when it gets offered, because that was great. Thank you so much for your time. Congrats on having 2 great projects coming out this month, and looking forward to seeing what's next from you.
Thanks so much, Darren. I appreciate it. And you can follow me on Twitter if you're not following me already. Jeffrey
I will follow you within the next 3 minutes, promise.
All right. I will accept your request.
Thanks, Jeffrey. Have a great rest of the day.
Take care. Bye.
Paltrocast.